I'm your host, Taha Hussain. There was a time that I lost my job once, and I wasn't able to secure a new job for about 8 months. The market was amazing, by the way, at that time. It wasn't like today's market. This market is very tough. And I just couldn't find a new job. There were many opportunities. I was applying, and a lot of people were not coming back to me. I was failing my interviews. And one of the key things that happened was, when you lose a job, it kind of shatters your confidence. You start doubting yourself. That happened to me. And I wasn't performing well in these interviews. And plus, making the ends meet for it, that's also another pressure we have. So, I was desperate at that time. So I understand a lot of folks who are looking for job these days and who have lost their jobs in layoffs. They are going through a very tough time. The way you want to come back is by realizing your own value. Because there are jobs out there and people are getting them. The ones who are getting those jobs are positioning themselves based on what they think about themselves. If you think that you are an average engineer, or we have a habit of putting ourselves, in a humble manner forward, which I'll show you through some examples today, we are not selling ourselves. And one thing for sure is software engineers are not, marketing people. They're not salespeople. But everyone needs to learn how to sell their skills in market. That's where you make a good money out of what you provide, your services. So today you'll learn that as well. Okay. So today's agenda is very simple. 3 things. I'm going to talk about 7 resume tips with you. And these tips are not common tips that we share. So you might think, does that really work? And so I want to tell you that I want you to wait for the entire tip to finish. It's a bigger format. It's going to tell you to present yourself in a very different manner in industry. Others are not doing this, by the way. Number 2, we'll talk about one specific question which everyone faces, whether you're an engineer, a manager, whoever you are, a product manager, a design person. How do you handle conflicts? That's the most common question. And I'm going to give you a format for that, a specific format which will remind you how you can take your stories of conflict resolution and create a response that the other person gets inspired by your response. Number 3, we're going to talk about any other question which I haven't covered, which you face. I will also learn from your feedback what other questions you have. So let's dive in. When we look at resumes and we think about recruiters and hiring managers, there is a behavior that we see that people have 3 seconds or 10 seconds, less than 10 seconds to look at your resume. It's actually really, it's faster than that. It's in milliseconds. People take out your resume and they're just moving along. And that's why we try to bold buzzwords. Hey, I'm a Java expert. Hey, I know Kafka. I know these things. What's happening is that everybody's doing the same thing. So there's no point in creating like holding a sign that's saying 1 or 2 keywords that this is what I am. What I'll say is that if you are a painter and you painted Taj Mahal, I would say you should definitely put that. But if you painted other houses, like 5 houses, 10 houses, it doesn't matter. So we need to identify what your Taj Mahal is so that you can put that and attract recruiters and hiring managers. So we'll talk about that today. If you are letting people to quickly review who you are, they didn't invest time in you. When people don't invest time in others, they're less interested in knowing more about them. So today we'll talk about how do we create interest in people so they keep on learning more and more about us. Okay, let's start with this resume first. This is one of the most common resumes you'll see, and we'll say this is perhaps a good way of writing your summary, your headline, right? Software engineer with over 6 years of experience in full stack development and leading cycle from conception to completion. Awesome. First of all, I don't know any software engineer who would say, I start things, but I stop them, right? So why write from conception to completion? It doesn't add any value. Full stack development. A lot of you are looking at this first line thinking, That's my resume, right? Now let's look at the second line. Guided a team of 5 to 15 members through 5+ product launches at a recent experience in a high growth technology startup. What's the wow factor about that? Now people are thinking, hey, you know what? This is my resume and this is what I think about myself as well. This is what I did. Why is this not interesting? It's not because it's just common language, but everyone does a lot of stuff more than these things. And what they're trying to do, they're trying to take their entire resume and condense it into 2 lines as a summary. We are not writing summaries here. Summaries are written in schools and colleges, not on your resumes. Resume is not about, here's my summary. This is your quick view. If this is your quick view, nobody's interested. Okay. It's written well, it's just not interesting. The second part is, the first line says software engineer. The second line says guided a team of 5 to 15 members. Now, is this person a manager or an engineer? It's hard to tell from these 2 lines. Let's look at this guy's resume. Now, here's one part that I want to talk about is while this summary is written in 2 sentences, it's interesting or not, it's written as a paragraph. And we tend to forget paragraphs. It takes an effort on our eyes to look at and read stuff like this. But when you write things in bullet format, it becomes easier on the eyes to read stuff. So let's look at this one. So these 3 lines are written in a bullet format. They are easy on the eyes. And while we might think this is a good headline, it's not. It's one of the worst summaries on the top because it's disqualifying. It's again adding a summary aspect. 20+ years, people think this is too old. I'm thinking I need to put years over there because everyone does. Like this guy did 6 years of experience. But numbers of years of experience is an old thing. You can have 8 years, you can have 12 years. What does that matter? People do write that in job description. They're writing, hey, we want people with 5 years, 6 years, 8 years. I challenge everyone on my teams whenever they write that number of years experience in a job description, because that does not qualify you for your skills. I've seen people with like 20+ years experience and not knowing anything about software coding or, a lot of stuff. So over here, when you talk about 20+ years, you're just telling the other person a different impression about yourself. And it's also not not useful about information. Scalable software solution in 2023. I haven't met a single person who does not design scalable software solutions. So this is prime real estate. And I wasted that with 20+ years and scalable software solution. This line is just a waste. And it's a top line that I have. It's not interesting. In fact, it's disqualifying me for role. Now let's look at the second line, software engineer and team lead. You know what I had over here? I was thinking, I need to nail many jobs. So I can apply also as a principal engineer. And maybe in startup companies, they look for people who are hands-on coders. So I can go and I can start a team from there and grow it. What's happening? I'm giving them a very wrong impression about myself. Am I really qualified for a job that's hands-on coding? And I haven't coded for like many years. The other one is about team lead. Is that a software manager? Is that a director? Is that a principal engineer? The third line is even more confusing. Multi-domain expert, innovator, and strategist. Now, am I going towards business development? Now, when you look at this one, in milliseconds, somebody will just reject my resume. I do not qualify neither for an IC role nor for a management role. So what do? We stop writing summaries. That's the rule number 1. We are not summarizing ourselves. Rule number 2, we're going to start writing like a story. We're going to start writing like a hook. Now think about when you browse Netflix, all those images that are coming through, they're not giving any summaries. Those are all hooks. Name is a hook. The image is a hook. Right? And there's a small snippet about that. And that snippet is not a summary. Because if they summarize it, you'll know the movie, what happens at the end, right? Imagine a summary saying, and everyone dies at the end. Nobody's going to watch that movie. But now what's happening is you need to start creating a hook in which people would want to learn more. Okay. The nature of a hook is that it is giving you information straightforward, like a software engineer with 6 years of experience building, full stack solutions. That's telling. You're telling what you're doing. And the information is a judgment. Hey, I'm a software engineer, I have 6 years experience over here. In the same way, when you're telling some stuff over like this, if you're telling stuff, it can get boring. And that's why we stop reading information. That resume after first 3-4 lines, I would probably just, lose my interest on that. So we need to create our top section as hooks. And interesting hooks make big claims. And here's one example. One is your resume is getting trashed in 3 seconds. This is the hook that I used. Interesting for you. So when you're browsing LinkedIn, for example, and you're thinking about how do I get resume tips? How do I get about interview tips? You're going to just scroll past this. Innovation isn't just dollars and talent. You're going to stop at your resume is getting trashed in 3 seconds. And that caught your attention. Now you're going to go look at the second line, then the third line. Okay. The next part about after you have a hook, which is making a big claim, you need to demonstrate and you need to fulfill that promise you're making in your big claim. If you're saying, hey, I'm pretty awesome. Why are you so awesome? Can you show some examples over here? So this is how storytelling works. And I don't want you to think about writing an entire LinkedIn post. We are here to write a resume. In writing a resume uses a different strategy. It uses a mix of show and tell in each sentence as we go through to create that interest. Okay.